Hello, this is the 8.97 tutorial. To begin, let's start up by loading our template. I'm going to go to New. Where you save your template may be different than mine, but make sure you go to the template folder. Mine's stored in my documents. McFatter templates. McFatter ACAD. Open. Now, while in here, let's go ahead and save the drawing. We're going to go to Save, and as doing this, you'll see that it comes up and says Save Drawing As. Save it where you store your work in your folder for Chapter 8. We're going to name this drawing 8.97. Save. Now the next step that I'm going to do, you do not have to repeat. I'm going to just load an image file of the problem that we're working on today. So now I can see the drawing that you're working on. And we can now work on it together. Now for the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to start on the front view for this drawing, for it has the most information available. I'm going to go to the Home tool, start a line command. I'm going to pick a base point for that line and point in the direction I want it to draw in. The longest length, notated across the bottom, is set to 11. And the height, do not get deceived by this 1.8. The 2 is the largest dimension on here for the height of this object. I'm going to go 11 again, and then 2. Now, as you saw as I was drawing the line, I had my ortho tool on. Make sure you turn ortho on. Now, the next set of dimensions we're going to notice are coming from the very bottom of the piece and coming up from there. So we have our 0.2, we have a 1, and we have a 1.8. Those are going to be the different heights that we're going to need on that side. And we're also going to need a couple of different heights here. 0.65, 0.25. Then there's going to be a height here at 1. As you'll note from earlier lessons, these are going to be hidden lines. Let's go ahead and start with their front left side. I'm going to go ahead and do some offsets. Offset command. Distance of 0.2, enter. Selecting the bottom of the line and coming up, right click, enter. Then I'm going to do another offset at 1, right click, repeat offset. 1. And my next offset is going to be 1.8. Enter, right click, repeat offset. 1.8, enter. On this one here, we're going to be using a lot of dimensions to the centers. We're going to have to establish some locations. If we follow the dimensions along, you'll notice from the right-hand side, coming over to here, we have a 4 and a 7 along the back side. And then we have a dimension coming from that back side forward 1, which is going to get us to this edge here. And then all the dimensions come from here over this way. So in order to work on these dimensions here, I'm going to have to work on the right-hand side. Now, take note also, if you look at the position of the dimensions, they tell you what face they are on. These are all on the front face that are slanting to the left. And then all these slanting to the right are the right-hand side dimensions. Make sure to keep that in mind when you're reviewing the drawing. Let's go ahead and get some of these dimensions from left to right taken care of. Offset. We'll start with the 4. Right click, enter. Right click, repeat offset. Distance of 7. Select the right-hand side line, then select anywhere on the left-hand side of that line. Then we're going to come back in. 1. Right-click, enter. Right-click, repeat offset. Distance of 1. Select this baseline and move to the right. Now, this line here we can go ahead and change to a hidden line. Just to show you where we're at. We have our overall dimension at 11. Then from there to here is our 7. Then we came from here to there is our 1. And we have here to here at our 4. Now, let's go ahead and take care of this 4 here. It stops from 1 up at the bottom. It's going to have a line that's going to intersect at that line there. So I'm going to use that. And I'm going to keep the other side of the 1 right here where those center lines are. So I'm going to use a trim command from the hidden line here to this 4 line right here and cut this 1 away because we have 1 on this side, on the right hand side, and then we have a 1 reference on the left hand side. I'm going to hit escape. Let's start the trim command. Selecting the hidden line as one cutting plane. Selecting the 4-inch line as another cutting plane. Right click. Selecting that line off in the middle. Right click, enter. This line is now going to be selected as a center line for referencing to the holes that we will be placing shortly. And then this line here is going to be the hidden line along with this line here. Hit escape. Now I'm going to use the trim command. Crossing window. Right click. And then select this line here to cut. Right click, enter. So this portion back here is a hidden line for this angled cut that's going on in the back that we cannot see. All right. Now this line that we have established here has a certain height available for it. We'll notice that this 1 inch goes toward the front, and it drops down to this line here, and it comes across, and that's the line that's dimensioned here to here at 0.65. Let's go ahead and put that line in now. We'll go ahead and use the offset command. Type in a distance of 0.65. Enter. Then I'm going to select the bottom baseline and move it up, selecting above it. And now I could use the trim command, trim, selecting this line and this line here as cutting planes. Right click, selecting below and to the left of the line. Right click, enter. And now I have that line here established. Now I'm also going to need to put in this rectangle here as well. Now that I have this established, I have an offset distance from here to there at 2.2. So I'm going to offset 0.2, enter. Selecting this line here and bring it across. Right click, enter. Now what I'll notice is because I cut that short, I'm going to have to now extend that line to hit this line right here, which is the bottom of that rectangle. And then I'll be able to cut that off. Also, the 1.8 will be the top of this, so I will cut that as well. So first things first, I'm going to use the extend tool, selecting my boundary edge, right click, then select the line I would like to make longer, right click, enter, right click, recent input, trim. I'm going to select that top line, right click, and trim that away, right click, enter. Now I'm going to do the thickness of that rectangle, which is 0.8. Just going to do an offset. Of 0.8. Selecting that line and moving it across here. Right click, enter. Now I noticed this as soon as it happened. You can see how it's over this 1 inch. That 0.8 is actually from that baseline that we were establishing earlier. So don't get confused going 0.2 and then 0.8, because that'll throw your math off. Make sure that you're always going from the baseline. So I'm going to select that line, hit delete. Then I'm going to use the offset command, type in 0.8, selecting the baseline, then selecting the side I want it on, right click, enter. Now I'm going to use the extend command again, bringing it to the bottom base. Right click, extend that line, right click, enter. Then I'm going to go ahead and trim that out using the top line here as a cutting plane. Right click, trim that out. Right click, enter. Right click, repeat trim. I'm going to use these two lines, this one and this line here. Right click. I'm going to cut away at this line, this line, this line, and that line. Right click, enter. Now to go ahead and check my work, I'm going to go ahead and use a linear dimension from here to here. We're going to see our point 2. Right click, repeat linear dimension from here to there. And we have our point 8. And notice it's coming from the base. Now, what we're going to do eventually, we're also going to get these dimensions in here as well. Let me just check my dimensions up and down. And they are now correct. So we are good to go with that. Let's go ahead and erase these dimensions, get them out of the way. Now the next set of dimensions are going to be center lines for the holes that we'll place in. So I'm going to use the offset tool. I'm going to offset the first one at 2.25. Enter. Selecting our baseline and moving across. Now it's okay that this is not the full length down. We're just going to use this intersection as a reference point. I'm going to right click, enter. Right click, repeat offset. Distance of 3.25, enter. From our base, across, right click, enter. Right click, repeat offset. Distance of 4.25, 4.25, enter. Selecting this line as our baseline, enter. And then these three lines here, I'm going to go ahead and change them to center lines so that we know that they're marking the center of the holes. Let's go ahead and put this little nook that cuts down into here into our drawing. It's going to be from the bottom, copied up at 0.250. So we're going to go ahead and do an offset. .25, enter. Selecting the bottom line and coming up to here. Right click, enter. Now notice there's a clear difference between this depth here and the depth that's this rectangle. Now, this surface, which is this line, is going to be coming down to that hidden line. But it's going to be coming down as a hidden line. So, let's go ahead and change our layer to hidden. You see how it changes at the top. I'm going to start a line command from here and go down perpendicular to that line. Right click, enter. Remember your object snaps. If they're not showing up, you want to make sure you have them on. All right, and if you don't find them down here, you can click on this to turn on your object snaps. Make sure the check mark is on in order for you to use it. Now I'm going to use the trim command. Selecting this line here, right click, and cutting away at this. Right click, enter. This line now is going to become a hidden line. Hit escape. All right, we're looking pretty good. This drawing is almost complete for this front view. Now what we need to do is put in our circles. So we're going to start off. These are mentioned as diameter dimensions. So when I go ahead and use my circle command, make sure to pick diameter. I'm going to go to the intersection, and I'm going to set the diameter to 0.75, enter. Now, as you notice, I didn't change my line type back to 0. So I'm going to select the object, and I'm going to change it to layer 0. Hit the escape key. So now this is on layer 0. I can then make sure that the layer that I'm currently working with is on layer 0. Now whatever I draw will be on layer 0. I'm going to go ahead and start some more circles. Now I could go ahead and draw these one by one. Or I can go ahead and use the copy command, select the original object, right click, find the center of the circle, and then go to the intersection or perpendicular to that, right click, enter, and duplicate the circle. Remember to use your tools accordingly. Now these corners here. These corners are cut at a 45-degree angle at a distance of 0.313. In order to do that, let's go ahead and use our chamfer command. If you don't have the chamfer command here, you probably see the fillet command. All you do is click this arrow to change it to whether you want fillet, chamfer, or blended curves. We're going to be using the chamfer command. At the bottom of the screen, you have select first line. Before we do that, if you notice above that, it says that the distance 1 and distance 2 is at 0. We need to modify that. So if you click on distance, we then get the option to change that. The distance is 3, backspace, 0.313, enter, and then it automatically fills in the second distance at 0.313. So I'm going to press the enter key. Now go ahead and select the two lines, line 1 and line 2, and it makes that cut for you automatically. Let's go ahead and repeat that command. Repeat chamfer, select this line, and select that line. When I'm done, right click, enter. Now this is a command that actually stops on its own, so you don't have to right click enter. It'll automatically be finished. I accidentally pressed repeat chamfer out of force of habit. So let's see. It looks like the majority of this is finished. Is all of it finished? I think it is. All right. So now we're going to be starting with the next view. What I'm going to do is going to erase a lot of these dimensions that are in here. I'm also going to delete these center lines. And then because this view is complete, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the line work here, 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 and here to our object layer. Looks like I forgot this side. Let's go ahead and select that. To avoid having to do this step, you could also just start with your object layer. Now I'm going to start with the top view. I'm going to go ahead and project some lines going from the front, right side, straight up. Distance does not matter. I'm zooming out just to go ahead and make it nice and clear that I'm going up. Right-click, enter. Then I'm going to take that same line, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to place it on every intersection, corner that I see going across the top. I can then start working on like hidden lines or lower objects, the quadrants of the circle. I could also notate the centers. Right-click, enter. Now, because these are circles and they're center lines, I'm going to select those line types and change those to center so that I can identify that those are center lines. I will also know that these holes are going through the material. And since they're going through the material, they're going to become hidden lines. So I'm going to change those lines to the hidden layer. Now I'll have to modify some more, like this one here will also be on the hidden layer, but I don't want to do too much to get it too far ahead. So now what I need is a line to start my object with. So I'm going to start a baseline here, coming from here straight across. This is going to be the very front of the top. And then I'm going to start working my distances that go back. For example, from the front going back 1.75. And then I also have on this side 0.250, 0.875, and 1.125. This one is a little bit confusing for this side here. You'll see that it's 0.5, but it's coming from 0.5 from the 0.875. So I have to do a little bit of backtracking for that one. Be aware if they do dimensions like this, not to just assume that that's the total. The total is not dimensioned for this side view or top view. You have to do a little bit of math for that. All right. So let's go ahead and do some of these dimensions in here. Start for the 1.375. Offset. 0.375. Enter. Select this line and go up from there. Right click, enter. Then I'm going to go back to start and get the 0.250. Right click, repeat offset. 0.25, enter. Selecting our baseline, going up from there. Right click, enter. Right click, repeat offset. 0.875, enter. Selecting our baseline and then going up. Right click, enter. Right click, repeat offset. 1.125, enter. Select our baseline and then come up. Right click, enter. Now from that 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth offset, we're going to go ahead and go 0.5. So offset 0.5, enter. Then our offsets, 1, 2, 3, 4. Clicking this line, and then going above it, right-click, enter. So now I have all my offsets that I need for the distances going back, except for this 0.75. We'll come back to that one later. Now, if we notice that this 0.375, which we have going from here to here, is going to stop where it intersects with that 7. So if I look from here to here, should be our 7. Let's go ahead and check that. So there's our 7. So with this line and this line, I'm going to do some trimming. So start trim. And I'm going to select the right-hand side of the 0.375 line. And then I'm going to select the below for the 7 line. Right-click, enter. Now you can see the shape that's coming across here and then goes back up. Okay? So I no longer need the 7. Delete. And I don't need this 375. Delete. I could also use the trim command to clarify the edge. Right-click. This beginning edge I don't need anymore. And this I don't need anymore here. I'll keep these for notes that I haven't done them yet. Let's go ahead and establish with this line here. This is going to be our distance from here to there, which was 0.25. I'm going to go ahead and use the dimension tool to demonstrate from here to there. And the length of this is going to go from here to here. You can see the projected line. That's our 6. That we don't actually have dimensioned, but you can see here from 7 minus 1 would give us 6. That's where that surface begins. So any lines that come across will be cut at that line. So that means that we also can get rid of our extra line from here to here, which is our 0.875. We can see that located from here to there. And as you see, it goes back across to intersect with that surface as well. So now we'll start with the trim command. From here as a cutting plane. We can also select, because we need this line to go all the way across from the outer edge to that 0.875. Right click. Now we can remove this line on the other side here and this line here on the other side. And then above and below. Right click, enter. We can also now get rid of these extra lines here because we've worked with those. Right click, repeat trim. Selecting our baseline. Right click, we'll take out this line, and this line. Right click, enter. And then remove those dimensions. start seeing our shape coming together right in here. Now this line that's right here is underneath the top of the piece. It is the hidden line that's represented here. And it's also the backside bottom that's represented here. We're going to go ahead and do a little bit of a trick here. I'm going to change this here to a hidden line. And I'm going to start a line command from the intersection of here to there, drawing on top of the line that we have here. Let's go ahead and dimension that so we can see what line that is. The 1.125, which is the bottom of the piece. From here to there is a hidden line that we just drew going across. But we're going to need some solid line in here, because this little from here to here, which is 0.5, is going to be just going over that line, coming across, and it's going to drop back down. So I need that line to be there. So to clean that up, let's go ahead and use the trim command. I can go ahead and select these two lines here and this line right here, right click, and I don't need the above anymore, here and here. And I don't need this left-hand side. Right-click, enter. And you can see how that piece from here to there is coming across and then coming back down. I can also trim out this line here because I no longer need it. So I go trim, selecting that back side there, which is the 1.125 line. Right-click and trim that out. Right-click, enter. And that line is still going across that 1.125, so we're going to fix that now. We're going to use the trim command. Trim command. And where that line stops, which is all the way across here, at the 7, and at that intersection right there, we're going to right click. Those are our two cutting planes. I'm going to cut the left side over here. And then I'm going to, just for easy sake, I'm going to go across to where I have that little extension of that line and click it here. You'll notice that it starts disappearing. Right click, enter. What that did was it cut it all the way across and brought it back into here. That little intersection right there is now our cutting plane. Was our cutting plane to cut that whole line away. I'm going to go ahead and delete this dimension. So this right-hand side is getting more and more complete as we go along. Let's go ahead and take care of these holes and center lines. I'm going to go ahead and use the trim command. I'm going to select this line here and this line here. Right-click. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do a crossing window. Straight across. Take out all these lines right here. Right-click, enter. Now, as you notice, I also cut through this line here. This little rectangular square shape coming in right here is the top surface of the slant. So that's a foreshortened view here. So it's not accurately dimensioned. So we're going to go ahead and trim using this baseline here. Right click. And I'm going to do a crossing window again, cut away all those. So remember to keep this line in here. This line here is important. And these are our hidden lines for the circles. And we have our center lines for the circles. We're going to go ahead and adjust those in a little bit. But right now, let's go ahead and look at our top view of our drawing. It's all pretty much came together right here. One thing that we're missing is the hidden rectangle that's coming in here. Let's go ahead and establish that depth. From the very front, coming back at 0.75. Let's go ahead and do an offset tool. 0.75, enter. Pick our baseline, and then move up with it. Select, right-click, enter. Go ahead and use the trim command, selecting these two and this one. Right-click, and we'll just cut away at those extra lines. Right-click, enter. Right-click, repeat trim. We're going to select this front baseline. Right-click, and then cut away at these. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and select this rectangle here. Because on this view is hidden, you cannot see it. We're going to change that layer to hidden. Hit the escape key. I'm going to take out this dimension right here. Let's go ahead and trim out that extra line on this side. We could also take out this line here. So let's right-click, enter, right-click, repeat trim. Select this as our baseline, right-click, and get rid of this line here. All right. So now our top view looks complete. So let's go ahead and fix these center lines. Now, when doing a center line, you'll notice when you draw it off to the side, it has to have a certain length before it pops, before you get that nice, clean center line. So I recommend going ahead and drawing that center line off to the side until you get that nice, clean pop. Then you just place it there, right-click, enter. What we're going to do is going to replace these with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this line here, use the copy command, pick the midpoint of that line, and then pick the midpoint of this line, and place it on each and every one of these. Now, be careful, depending upon where you drew that, you're going to get a perpendicular, and you're going to get a midpoint. We want it on the midpoint of that line, okay? So don't get confused by that. Make sure you hit that midpoint. Now that I've done that, I'm going to do a crossing window with the blue highlight going from my left to my right in a downward direction. I'm going to select that line, select that line, and select that line. I'm going to hit the delete key. And I have some nice clean center lines for those holes. Go ahead and select this and hit delete. So that looks like our top view is complete. Let's go ahead and change all of our layer 0 lines. To the object layer. Escape. Now, if you haven't saved in a while, make sure you save. It's always good to make sure you have a nice saved drawing. And because we already named it, it's going to save it in the location that we saved it prior. All right. Now for this, we're going to also need to do our side view here. In order to do that, what I'm going to do is going to take the top view, I'm going to copy it. and move it from anywhere off to the side. Right click, enter. Then I'm going to rotate it, selecting that line, rotate. The base point I want to have a little bit more control of, so I'm going to pick the right hand front corner. And then normally this is 0, so I'm going to go in the downward direction, rotating it at negative 90 degrees. But I don't have to type that in, so I can just click and point. Make sure to avoid any snap points. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to move it just a little bit closer, so I'm not going too far. And to draw that side view, what I'm going to do is I'm going to project lines from this and project lines from this to create our final view. Go ahead and change my layer back to layer 0. Start some line work. Going from the top across. Going from the bottom across. Going from the back across, which is on this view the right hand side. And then there's the perimeter of the area that I have. I can go ahead and keep my life a little bit simple and trim that out. Selecting a crossing window by making all those cutting planes, and then selecting to remove all those. So now I have my box. I can go ahead and also take that box and change it to object layer. So I can see that's my limits of my drawing. And I can start bringing over the details that I'm going to need for the different stuff. For example, the bottom comes across here. I'm going to use that same bottom and bring a line across here and a line across here. And the height of that, at least on one side, is going to be here, coming across to there. You can start seeing the little J shape taking shape here. If everything is working correctly, from here to there should be at 0.5. Let's go ahead and check that. And there it is. I'm going to go ahead and bring that with a line right across. And I can create my diagonal by referencing this line here, coming across, intersecting. Once I intersect that point, I can go ahead and make my diagonal right there. And I know that line is going to continue down all the way to the bottom. And I'm going to use the trim command for this, right click and cut this away. And this back line right here no longer is going to exist, so I'm going to delete that. And then this and this line are now going to become my new object layers. And I no longer need this line here anymore. And I no longer need this line here. I'm going to go ahead and do some trimming. Select that top line, this line here, and these two lines. Right click, I'm going to cut away at this on this side, these two bottom lines. Oops, I need that. Let's go ahead and cancel, undo, trim command again, select these two, right click, and now we'll go through. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't cut that because there's nothing left. This top, right click, enter, right click, repeat trim. Now I'll use the top and the front to cut this and this out. That makes that J more visible. We're going to select these lines here, change them to object, hit the escape key. Now, this diagonal here doesn't go all the way through. It only has a certain depth. To represent that, we're going to need this hidden line right here coming across this backside right here. So I'm going to go ahead and change my layer to hidden and draw a line from here going right up to there. That now represents what's happening back here. It also does show the back edge here, but wherever there's an edge, there's pretty much two lines, unless it's on like a triangle or something like that. So just be aware of that. So we got boom, boom, boom. I got that taken care of. Now let's take care of this line here and this box here. So let us project with, we could use hidden line actually, because this will not be seen. So this is going to go straight across. And then this one also is going to be hidden. So I'm going to project that straight across. Now, this one here goes just this corner here and that corner there, from the top all the way to the bottom. So I can easily go ahead and use the trim command, select the top and select the bottom, right click and cut this and this away, right click, enter. But this one right here, I need to project the top and the bottom across. Notice that I go out away from the drawing. I don't want to intersect any of these lines here. Okay? Now I'm going to use the trim command, click on the front face, and this line here, and these two lines, right click. I'm going to cut these two away first. Then I'm going to cut these two away in the back, this in the bottom, and this in the top. Right click, enter. Now you can see that rectangle going in that depth. All right, now we have our holes. Let's go ahead and draw those in. They're going to also be in a hidden line. I'm going to use the top of the quadrant going across until I intersect with that wall, because they only go so deep from here to there. Repeat line, bringing it across to here, right click, enter, and that takes care of all three of the holes because they're all in line. I can also copy that center line, bring it across. You need a location for that, so I'm going to draw a line, temporary line from here to here. That's going to give me a midpoint. Take that line, I'm going to use the rotate tool, picking the midpoint, and going down. You're going to take that line, move command, go from the midpoint, and move it to that midpoint. Right click, enter, escape key, and delete this extra construction line here, and then use the trim tool to cut those two lines away. Next step, going to need these chamfers. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that across to the hidden line. Then I'm going to trim that out using the front face. Cut and cut. Alright, looks pretty good. That looks complete to me. So now what I'm going to do is going to delete this view here. You no longer need it. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now, this drawing here, I'm going to move it just slightly away so it's out of view of these two. I'm just going to take this, I'm going to move this out of view. You don't have that, so you don't have to worry about it. But we're now going to be able to start with getting ready for our layout. So something important we're going to do is going to start doing our dimensions. We're at a scale of 1 to 1. Let's go 11 by 17. Okay, so now that we're here, we're going to look at our drawing. Click on our viewport twice. We can look at our drawing and see how well this fits into our viewport. I'm going to go ahead and change the scale to 1 to 1. And that fits in there pretty nicely. I could probably move these two drawings a little bit closer together. So I can go ahead and click inside that viewport and highlight this object right here. Right click, move, moving it just a little bit up higher. Squeeze those two drawings a little bit more close together. Now, in this, I'm going to need to incorporate this view as a removed view. Okay, so this is also going to be at a 2 to 1 scale. In order to do that, let's make sure that our drawing here is at 1 to 1. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze them together just a little bit more. Making sure I have ortho on. I don't want these two to become not together anymore. And then double click outside the viewport and change my layer to layer 0 or to depth points. Because the viewport is on depth points. So I'm going to add a new viewport. In our layout tab, going to go ahead and use the base. Rectangular. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw a rectangle off the side to here. And that creates a second viewport. I'm going to go ahead and select that viewport, and I'm going to move it off the drawing for now, just so I can explain a little bit better about it. Now, the reason why we want this on def points is that it's a non-print layer. This rectangle we will not see on our print. And then in here, what I can do is I can size this accordingly if I need to make it bigger or smaller. But what's important is on the inside of the viewport, it gives us that window to be able to zoom in to our other drawing. Okay? And this is just a window. And I can move this window wherever I want. But when I'm in the viewport, I'm looking into model space. I want to make sure my scale is at 2:1. Noticing that it's not big enough, so I click on the outside of that window. And I'll stretch it out. And I'll stretch it down. I'm going to need to make room for dimensions. So I'm going to bring that up a little bit more. Bring that across a little more. And bring that down a little bit more. And across a little bit more. Now, you may notice that the line types have gotten messed up. In order to fix that, we'll go ahead and double click inside the viewport, and then we'll type in REGEN, regen, enter, and that sets the drawing to what the scale is at right now. In order to do that, let's go ahead and set our scale correctly to 2:1, and then we'll go ahead and type in regen again, REGEN, enter. And now, even though this is at a scale of 2:1, and this drawing here is at a scale of 1:1, the line type will be consistent on both sides. All right, so we need to get this guy here to fit inside this same viewport here, or in the same sheet. So we're going to do a little bit of modifications in here. No zooming in and zooming out. Just moving it around, getting it to the most ideal spot. Up a little bit. I want to leave enough room for any dimensions that I may need. Make sure our scale is correct, 1:1, perfect. Double click on the outside to make sure I'm not in the viewport when I'm using my scroll to zoom in and out. And I can select this drawing, and I can move it right inside here. Now, I'm going to leave this viewport on the outside here just a little bit. This is on a non-print layer, so it really won't matter. Gonna have to move these two a little bit closer. Double click on this viewport, highlight across, move a little bit higher, double click out of the viewport, click this viewport. Gonna go ahead and move this around a little bit. Make my life a little bit easier. I click inside that viewport, and I'm going to turn off the grid. Then I'm going to click away from that. I'm going to double click inside this viewport and turn off the grid as well. It's going to make our life a little bit easier to see. So after looking at this drawing, you might start to think this looks a little tight. You don't have any room for annotations or anything like that. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change this. We're going to go ahead and take our viewport here and change this view. Instead of it being 1-to-1, we're going to go ahead and make this at 1-to-2. And then we're going to take this view here, which is at 1-to-2. Let's get out of that viewport. Go into this viewport and change this to 1-to-1. And then click away. Go in this viewport. Now we have much more room to work with. We can go ahead and separate these guys back. Let's not forget to regen. R-E-G-E-N. And we'll go ahead and go into this viewport. R-E-G-E-N. Okay, looks nice and uniform. And this is just one of the examples of why it's good to go ahead and check your layout, see how it looks, and go from there before going into dimensioning your drawing. Because it's nice to get a good layout first before you start dimensioning your drawing. So once we've moved this around and feel it looks good, we can go ahead and go back to model space. And we can start putting in our dimensions. Now this drawing right here is going to be at 1-to-2. So I'm going to set that scale here at 1-to-2. I'm going to hit dimension. And let's put in all our dimensions that we need. I'm going to move this a little closer, so we have to go so far. Then I'll probably move it back when we get done. Remember, you don't need this. This is just so I don't have to flip screens. Let's do a linear dimension. Okay, let's get the overall dimension going across the bottom. Now, we got to make sure I change our layer. So that right now is at the def points that will not print. We got to go ahead and change it to anno layer. I'm going to hit the escape key. And then from here, I want to make sure that my active layer is my anno. Let's go ahead and do some more dimensioning. We have from this baseline. Now, instead of dimensioning here, we're going to bring that dimension down here. Normally, it's not proper to dimension to a hidden line, but in this case, we don't have much of a choice. Let's go ahead and bring that down. Repeat dimension. Bring it from here to there. Let me go ahead and check and make sure that our dimension style is following the scale that we set with properties. So our annotative scale is 1 to 2. I have center lines in here, so let's go ahead and put those in. Go ahead and annotate, center mark, click, 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 right click. And then these we need to make sure that they're on the center line there. And we'll continue our annotations. So in order to get that last dimension, we're going to move this guy down a little bit more. Go ahead and get these dimensions on the left-hand side. Now, depending on which direction I want this 0.2 to go in, so I'm going to dimension it from the top coming down to the bottom here. And that way when I pull it across, it puts it on the bottom. Let's see if this will work. Nope, I want that on the bottom as well. So let's repeat linear dimension. I bring it from here toward the bottom. From here to there. Okay, so that dimension is there. Just ignore that this is here. Then we need a dimension here. Here to here. This is an improper dimension, but for now we're going to accept it. Later on when you get into the sections, we'll be doing this drawing as a section and clarifying this dimension here. Put the 7 in. And then our 4. Our 1. Let's go ahead and line that up, make it look nice. Move this dimension a little bit further. Don't want it intersecting this. All right. Scan the drawing. I want to try and keep the majority of these dimensions here for our side view. Just want to make sure I get all my top dimensions. Let's go ahead and hit escape. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a leader line. Now they have their leader on the bottom here, but I think that's a little too crowded, so I'm going to go ahead and place it on the top. So to do this, I'm going to do a leader. I'm going to go ahead and place it on the midpoint of this, and I'm going to turn ortho off for this. One of the few cases where ortho just becomes annoying. Then I'm going to go ahead and type in the text to capital X space 0.313 space capital X .45 degrees. Add that little notation there. I'm going to do %, D, and that's going to add the degree symbol in there. A little bit of code for you. Go ahead and click on the empty gray area, or empty black area. All right, I can adjust that if I need to. Bring a little bit more into the drawing. All right, looks good. Got that in there. We need the circles dimensioned, so let's go ahead and dimension those circles. We'll go ahead and do a diameter dimension. Place it on the circle. Place the circle here. Now we don't want to cover up the center mark we made already, so we're going to click on that dimension. Right click, properties. Go to where it says lines and arrows. Center mark. We're going to change the line to none. Then we'll close that out. Hit the escape key. Then we have to edit the text. It says three times. So we're going to double click on this twice and then go 3 capital X space. And then click anywhere in the black. And there we go. So now those holes are dimensioned. Okay, you got that. Just look through, make sure you have everything. This is also a really good point to go ahead and make sure you save your drawing. So we have it dimensioned up there, got that dimension there. Looks pretty good. All right, so now that we have that there, this is done. We can go into this drawing here. And for this drawing, we're going to change our dimensions, our scale back to 1 to 1. And we'll place a dimension, linear. Let's go ahead and dimension from here to there. And you can see that this dimension is a little bit smaller than this dimension. But because this drawing overall is going to be 2 times bigger than this drawing, the dimension style needs to be a little bit smaller. Is it pointing in the right direction? Let's bring it out. So we're going to select this dimension, hit delete, and we're going to go ahead and put it back in. But this time we're going to go from our right to our left and place that dimension accordingly. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer to where I'm working right now. Let's go ahead and get these 2 dimensions out of the way. They're going to be going down. So that means I'm going to start at the top. So from here to the bottom, it's going to be that dimension. Top to the bottom. It's going to be that dimension. All right, so those are dimensioned. Now, this one right here, I went on the inside. Let's go ahead and make sure we change that. We're going to bring that to the outside just to give us a nice clean break. We don't want to travel over a line. Escape key. All right. So we're going to do some more dimensions. They're going to come from there to the base. Place this one here. Place this one there. Need that edge from here to there to be at the top. Let's go ahead and fix that, bring it on the outside. Let's go ahead and get our overall dimension and our in-between dimension. Let's examine, see if we're missing any dimensions. Nope, that looks good. Three, 22, 1, 2, 1. Looks like we're good and covered. We got all the dimensions there. So I'm going to take this drawing and I'm going to move it out of the way. Now we're going to need some other information here. So this is a remove detail. We're going to have to make our view AA. In order to do that, let's go ahead and change this to Phantom. We're going to change this to 2. And we're going to go ahead and make a leader pointing from this direction going in that way. And I'm just going to go ahead and enter that. Escape that. I want this arrow to be bigger, so I'm going to select it. I'm going to use the scale command. Scale at 2 times. I'm going to go ahead and explode any properties that it may have. Use the explode command. I can make this line a little shorter. I could have also trimmed different things of that nature. I didn't have to do it this time. And then I'm going to draw a line coming from here straight down. Escape. Then I'm going to select this line type. I'm going to copy it. I need to make sure I label this. Multi-line text. Let's go ahead and place this text here. This is going to be our A. Make sure we put in capitals. Making sure this is big and prevalent. I'm going to go ahead and scale that up by 2. Bring that down. And then I'm going to copy it. Make a base point. And freely move across to place it here. And here. Enter. I'm going to go ahead and delete this line right here, this A. Slim that up a little better, make it look nice. Just copy that straight down. Copy command. Then make sure I have ortho on so it doesn't slide to the left or slide to the right. Alright, that's going to lead us to labeling this down here. Plain text. I'm going to put in our label view. Make sure your caps are on. View space A dash A. They're probably going to want that to be a little bigger. Well, because everything is annotative, let's go ahead and see if that works out for us, because I believe that should scale up accordingly and be the same once we go to the same sheet. Try and get this nice and centered. And there we go. Now let's go ahead and check out our layout. Okay, we're a little bit shy on this side here, so we're just going to the viewport. And we'll just move that over with the pan button. I'm going to take that viewport. Move that over a little bit. Two. There we go. That fits a lot better. Let's make sure we regen. E-G-E. I'm going to go ahead and move that up a little bit higher. Now, because the scale is at 1 to 2, the text is not showing up here. So I'm going to go back to model space. I'm going to click on this, change the scale to 1 to 1. Let's check properties. Properties. And scale 1 to 2. If I have to, I'm going to add a scale. Scale I'm going to add is 1 to 1. Hit OK. Now you may notice that it just shrank. So what I'm going to have to do is select it and scale 2 times. And then I'll move that back into the position. All right. The escape key. Make sure I'm all clear. Go back to my layout. And don't that just look lovely. Notice that the text looks the same, even though they are 2 different scales. It's very important. Make sure you label under that view. Let's go ahead and go back to our model space. Make sure we're working at 1 to 2. We're going to put our smaller text actually no, that will be at 1 to 1 because this is 1 to 1 scale. Go ahead and put our text in. Multi-line text. Line it up with the view. And this is going to say scale. Make sure you're using capitals. And we're going to put in that it's 1 to 1. Then once we go back to our landscape, the overall global scale, which is located here. We'll double click on that twice. And here, we'll change this to 1 to 2. Click away. And so this is at 1 to 2, where our view AA is at scale 1 to 1. And we've made our drawing 2 times larger while keeping all of our dimensions at the same size. Go ahead and make sure you fill in other information, like your date, drawn by, project, and then in this right here, if you have multiple sheets, you'd put the total sheets and then the sheet active sheet. In this case, this will be 1 of 1. Once you're done with this, make sure you save. And then we're going to go ahead and print the PDF. So in here, we're going to go ahead and go to the print. It'll ask about batch plotting. We're going to do a single sheet. Make sure your drawing to PDF is active. It'll be all set up to monochrome. Scale is 1 to 1. We'll have everything all set up here. So all you have to do, we'll go ahead and preview that. Make sure this looks good. If it does not look good, go ahead and contact somebody. Go ahead and fix that. Well, once it's done, we'll exit out of this. And then you go ahead and print it. Once you print it, it's going to ask you to save it in a different location. Make sure you save it where you turn in all your work at. And then you'll be able to turn it into Mr. Rodriguez. And that completes the tutorial for 8.97. And I'll see you in the classroom.